that's kind of what we do best and sets us apart from others who have tried to come into this space. Is we can do an insane amount of volume at a really high quality, at a very low cost. So that's where our advantage has been. And since I have gotten started, more competition has come into the space, but I still like to think more or less that we have kind of a monopoly on the product. We took it from a niche product that people were kind of doing on their own under the table. We brought it to a fully mainstream product and concept.
Welcome back to the Pay It Forward podcast. I am one of your hosts, Austin Seward, along with my co-host, Keegan Walls, and today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Matt Curtis. Matt is a music aficionado, entrepreneur, all-around great guy. He's the owner of Capella Performing Arts Center, Apothik, which he just purchased, and also Choral Tracks. So thank you for being here today, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So why don't you give the listeners an idea of what you're doing now, what your different businesses look like?
Sure, yeah. My primary business is Choral Tracks, LLC. I started that business about 10, 12 years ago. And we're going to hit this year revenue of $2 million for the first time. And we have about 15 employees on board, half of which, kind of record behind a microphone in a studio. And half of which kind of edit the audio to make the tracks all line up and everything. The company is in the choir music space, right? There's millions of people around the United States and the world who sing in choirs, whether they're in high school, middle school, university level. That's kind of our primary target customers, or just in community choirs, church choirs, things like that. And so we create educational tracks that help singers learn their music faster, basically. Fully online business, nothing really physical about it. We deliver all of our products digitally. So that's what kind of brings in all the revenue and the profit, keeps me busiest, takes up most of my time. And then recently, a few years ago, I got into investing in real estate. I purchased properties over the past couple of years. Now I own about 12 different properties, residential and commercial. And I bought one of the big churches here downtown that was for sale.
That I got married at?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. A bit of a interesting purchase. Most people and companies wouldn't take on a property like that. I'm kind of more interested and passionate in actively creating new businesses versus purchasing passive investment opportunities. So I saw an opportunity there to start two different companies. One is the Capella Performing Arts Center, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. We foster mostly classical music, jazz music. We have our own concert series and put on our own concerts and sell tickets and such. But more importantly, we have a robust educational mission. There's lots of local nonprofit organizations like the Lacrosse Boy Choir, Lacrosse Girl Choir, community choirs and such that have long needed a space to rehearse and given their concerts and such. And so we've opened up the property for that use. And then another business that I started on that property earlier this year is Capella Weddings and Events, a for-profit business. Like you said, you got married there.
In the wedding space, there's a lot of profit.
Yeah. Well, it's a big old historic property, 150 years old. Kind of a money pit in certain ways.
Totally.
So we're hustling as fast as we can to get this wedding business up and running. Obviously, with a nonprofit organization, that's more of a tax write-off more than anything. That's not really paying the bills and keeping the building warm. So we're hustling really hard on the wedding side of things there.
Awesome.
And then most recently bought the fantastic brand in town, Apothik, the food truck. A lot of people know of the brand and the company and the food via the food truck at all of our great, local lacrosse festivals that we have in the summer and the spring and the fall. But there's also a brick and mortar location downtown on 3rd Street as well. So we just recently opened that up a week ago. It was closed with the change of ownership, and we're going through all those fun struggles of hiring new people and getting them trained and dealing with all that stuff. And then it's been closed for a few months now, which is enough time for our followers to kind of lose track a little bit. So now we're going through the struggles of trying to get people in the door again. So that's kind of a window into everything that I have going on right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you think of music and classical music, you don't generally think of entrepreneurship and business and mixing the two. So where did the passion for music and for entrepreneurship come from for you?
Yeah, I grew up in a family that's not really musical at all, so I'm a bit of an anomaly, if you will. My mom kind of recognized that there was something a little bit different about me when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and she was in the house playing oldies on the radio, and I was just kind of like singing along and like learning music really fast and sounding kind of good. So she and then my elementary music teacher connected me with the lacrosse boy choir here in town, and I really kind of excelled there. And it's just kind of a natural talent and gift that I've always had that has always just kind of come pretty easily to me. But, having grown up in a family of mostly kind of lawyers and doctors and some business owners, I've kind of always wanted something a little bit more. I've been interested in a little bit more. Obviously, the lifestyle that comes with being a professional musician is a bit limiting from a financial perspective. There are a lot of people who do quite well and teach and perform and live a comfortable life, but I've always kind of wanted something a little bit more. And ever since I was young, I always had kind of a bit of a hustle. I've always kind of excelled in school with things like that, but then also like the typical what kids do, lemonade stands, right? I was big into like sports and sports cards, trading cards, right? So like when eBay launched, I was doing some kind of buying and selling, just a little bit of stuff on eBay. Kind of foolishly, when I was young, with a lemonade stand, would like take sports cards out there and like think that people would actually buy them there before I actually knew what I was doing. So just had that little kind of hustle about me. And I think a lot of people think of musicians, and especially maybe like classically trained musicians, as that's kind of what musicians excel at, is just doing music, and there's not a whole lot perhaps additional to them. But music, just from an educational standpoint, goes really well with kind of mathematics. A lot of people who have a knack for music and a musical kind of brain are also very good at mathematics. They kind of go hand in hand a little bit. And then just the act of the discipline it takes to practice regularly and become good at your skill. Think of that as if you're younger and you're doing a sport, right? It kind of gives you that same discipline, some of the same skills that are needed as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to build a business and to work well with people. So yeah, I guess ever since I was young, music has always been my outlet and my natural gift. But I've always wanted more and have strived for combining the idea of music and entrepreneurship.
So what was your upbringing and training then with music growing up? Did you do it beyond high school, or was it just like high school choirs, the boys choir? What's your kind of musical training?
Yeah, like I was the ultimate choir nerd, choir geek, right? Like I was into sports and other things too. Like I didn't really play sports at all in high school, a little bit in middle school. Just because I was just so consumed with music. So like in high school, I sang in all the choirs. I'm an Aquinas high school grad, 2004 here, so I sang in all the choirs. I sang in local community choirs like the Cathedral Gallery Singers here downtown, in that church choir, the La Crosse Chamber Chorale on Tuesday nights. When I was I went to college at Viterbo for music education, and vocal performance as well. So yeah, like up to that point in my life, music was my thing. Like I wasn't interested in going to school for business. I wasn't building companies, nothing like that. I was focused 100% on music. But like I think the kind of the seed that was planted for Choral Tracks, my primary business, was when I got started singing in a barbershop quartet, again, kind of just for fun, another thing to do along the lines of choir and singing and music. I noticed that there was this guy out there who would record learning tracks for barbershoppers, and I learned that most people who sing barbershop for fun as a hobby don't read music at all. They look at the sheet of music at the page and nothing. So they learn everything by ear with these tracks. And this guy was like the guy in the space, recorded these tracks. And so I just knew from that moment, like, man, if I just take this concept that he's already kind of built and created in this very niche market and expand it to the full traditional choir market, for which, again, millions and millions of people sing in choir is that there's something here. So I got started. It would have been, I think, the summer after my junior year at Viterbo. The typical, what am I going to do for the summer? Work a quick trip or landscaping or whatever. Yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I spent the entire summer sitting at every day went into the diocesan center on the south end of town, and they have a really beautiful chapel there with a great acoustic. And I brought in my laptop every single day, had my microphone connected to it, and I got started recording Gregorian chant. So for the entire summer, I recorded, I think it was like 800 Gregorian chants. And
what is that?
Gregorian. So
you said barbershop.
Sorry,
I don't know either one.
Sorry.
So bragging with you more.
Okay, good.
Choir. I like.
Okay, like Gregorian chant, like in the Catholic Church.
Let's hear a little bit.
Well, okay. So here's a good example. You played Halo on Xbox, right? The game.
Sure.
So it starts out at the beginning. That's an example of like a chant.
Okay.
So I sat down that summer and recorded like 800 of those and created a website called chanttracks.com. And I found all the nerdiest community like chat groups out there. This was before like Facebook, or this was like right when Facebook was getting started. So we're talking like AOL Instant Messenger groups, and
really?
like that. So I found all the nerdy groups and kind of marketed myself. And I think that summer, I sold like a couple $1,000s worth of tracks, and of course I became familiar with the process and the software, and kind of got that better. And I remember the moment when I took my first, chant is just kind of one voice just singing, right? And the choir is different. It's kind of many voices layered on top of each other. So I remember that moment when I attempted my first piece of choir music layering on top of each other, and everything just fit together incredibly well, and it sounded amazing. And I just had that like light bulb moment, like, oh my gosh, I'm onto something big here. Yeah. So that's kind of how that business got started. Sorry, kind of sidetracked there, but yeah, like up until throughout college, I was fully immersed in music. It was a dream of mine to sing professionally in a choir based out in San Francisco called Chanticleer. They're one of, I think, only 2 or 3 full-time performing choirs in the United States. So I remember, beginning to listen to them and following them when I was in the boy choir and hearing recordings. And that was always kind of a focus and aspiration of mine throughout high school, throughout college. And that's kind of where my career made its first break, if you will, was getting hired by them and moving out to San Francisco and performing with them full time.
How did that come to be? Is that a application process, or are you invited? Like, how does that?
Yeah, so it's a choir of 12 men. What's one interesting thing about the brand is that the men sing soprano, alto, tenor, bass. So you have men singing super high, right, up in the soprano range, like where women would typically sing. Mm-hmm. So 12 spots in the choir, and of course my voice, I'm a tenor. I don't sing up that high professionally, but so my voice only applied to basically like 2 of the 12 chairs. So I think it was when I was a freshman in college at Viterbo, they do a big kind of summer educational thing every year. So I applied for that, knowing that I could kind of get my foot in the door a little bit, which worked out really well because I sang a solo in front of everyone and got noticed, if you will, and then put in my application that next year, had to fly out and do an in-person audition, but they didn't have a spot open, and it was a good audition. Then the next year, same thing. I got a call back, flew out there, but there wasn't a spot open. Same thing at the year after that. And it's interesting. After I graduated from Viterbo, I studied a year at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, focusing primarily on opera and singing and performing as a soloist, right? And I was really making some breakthroughs with my voice and my technique and all of that there, and really kind of saw a career path as a soloist versus a professional choir singer there. So there was a moment kind of when I was in the thick of the school year where they had a position that opened up like immediately, like I needed to quit school, fly out there, which was kind of tempting, but I decided actually to say no to that. And then that summer, after my first year of my master's degree in vocal performance, I was performing a gig down in Santa Fe, New Mexico, with a group called the Santa Fe Desert Chorale, and it kind of renewed my love for singing in choir, and it kind of proved to me that yes, I can make it as a soloist singing opera, and but kind of my skill set, my love, my passion is more for singing in choir. So then that summer, at the end of the summer, I got another call that another spot opened up, and that's when I said, "Yep, I'm totally in." So it was like I got the call, and then I needed to start work in like 2 weeks. So I was living in St. Paul, Minnesota at the time, again in between school years. So I had to figure out. I was in Santa Fe for another week, so I had to figure out logistically how do I fly back to San Francisco, get a moving truck. My wife was with me at the time. She moved out with me too. So we had to drive out to San Francisco. Didn't have a place to live. Lived in a hotel for a few weeks, and that was an interesting time. But it worked out really well.
How long was your term with Chanticleer?
Yep. So I sang with them for 3 years, which was really fantastic. I was again just fresh out of college, 23 years old.
What years were those?
2009 through 2012.
Okay, so I would have seen you because you guys tour back here in the area.
Yeah, right? we were in La Crosse at Viterbo. We performed. Yep. I think it was in 2011 in like February.
I saw Chanticleer because our choir class went to Viterbo.
Oh, so nice. Okay,
there you go.
All right, so we're talking the same language here. Okay, yep. Yeah, so I mean that job was so cool. I was only 23 years old, 23 to 26. Got to travel the world. You know, we were. It was kind of 3 weeks on the road, 3 weeks at home, 3 weeks on the road, 3 weeks at home. So we would sing probably 110, 120 concerts a year. And it was a little bit of it's funny to say, but there were aspects, a little bit of kind of a rock star lifestyle associated with it, you know, flying from airport to airport. And most concerts were in, you know, great towns, but I would consider them kind of middle of nowhere USA, or where you're staying at the Super 8 on the hotel and along the highway, and everything closes down at 8 p.m. You know, but there were those really great places, bigger cities, New York. We would tour Europe a lot, performed in China in a couple of places when I was with the group. That it really felt like a special job and an opportunity. It was a really unique experience. So I sang in that group for 3 years. And throughout the whole time, I was building my Choral Tracks business very slowly. It got to the point where by 2012, when I was at the end of my time with Chanticleer, that I was more or less kind of doing 2 full-time jobs at the same time, right? So I had my salary coming in from Chanticleer, and then leveraging the rest of my time building Choral Tracks. I would always bring my computer, my microphone, my equipment with me wherever we would go. I'd be waking up at 5 a.m. at random hotels, you know, singing and recording, just doing whatever I had to build the company slowly from the ground up.
So all the tracks on Choral Tracks, are they all you, or have you hired other people to also like help with that? Because when I think about that, I'm like, my gosh, there's what, 1.4 trillion songs. So it's like, how do you determine, here's the songs I want to record? And then that's got to just be so much back work of, especially if it's choir music, right? Because you have depending on the song, you can have so many different layers of parts, right? Soprano, alto, this.
Yeah.
Alto 2, tenor 2. Like, I mean, it could be endless.
I built the company just completely with sweat equity, just on my own. And my wife, Robin, was helping me all along the way as well. So I still own 100% of the company, which is really great. Like up until, so the first, I would say 7 or so years, I was the only one recording. So my voice was featured on everything. And I do have the ability to sing super high. So I was singing all the women's parts. I was singing the guys' parts. I'm not a low bass, but I was singing the low bass stuff. There's some really great software where you can manipulate pitches. So like a lot of the magic happens after the fact. But yeah, so my challenge has always been, how many songs are there in the choir mainstream? You mentioned like 1+ trillion or so songs or whatever, but in the choir mainstream, it's a little bit more limited. The number that I've always been trying to achieve and get to is about 50,000 songs. Wow, and we're actually pretty close. We're really close to hitting 40,000 right now. So we're just a couple of years away from kind of hitting that magic number, if you will. And the great thing about this business, again, it's completely digital. So a lot of music is, of course, copyright. So we're paying royalties on all of that music. We're taking our due diligence there. But once it's produced, we don't have to produce it again. It's not a physical product that has that ongoing production cost to it. So, we've already kind of reached the point where the volume of music that we have to record, that customers are requiring of us, has kind of ticked down a little bit. And that's going to continue to be the case going forward. And then once we kind of get closer to that magic 50,000-ish number, the number of new titles that publishers are putting out there every single year is maybe in the 2,000 to 3,000 neighborhood per year. And we have enough production and labor on board to take care of that, no problem. So, it's that's kind of what we do best and sets us apart from others who have tried to come into this space. Is we can do an insane amount of volume at a really high quality, at a very low cost. So that's where our advantage has been. And since I have gotten started, more competition has come into the space. But I still like to think more or less that we have kind of a monopoly on the product. We took it from a niche product that people were kind of doing on their own under the table. We brought it to a fully mainstream product and concept.
That's awesome. I mean, I can't read music. So I never could. I never could. I get that the note is lower. I could never read music. They tried to. I'm like, you got to play it on piano. I got to learn by ear. So, no, that's awesome. How many users do you guys have then that are,
Yeah, we have one product model, a subscription model where choirs can sign on for a full year. So there we have about 500 to 600 choirs that are on board that are just listing the songs that they need, and we're providing them up to a certain number per year. And then we sell everything just digitally a la carte as well. So it's a little bit hard to say how many customers totally there. But like I mentioned earlier, our revenue is going to hit about $2 million this year for the first time. So we've really, as of a few years ago, gone completely mainstream and blown up.
That's awesome. You guys have that Lord of La Mancha song? That's like one of the only ones I can remember back.
Yeah,
men's choir in middle school.
Yeah,
I Don Quixote.
Yep, the man of La Mancha. Yeah, yep. I am I, Don Quixote, the Lord of La Mancha. Yep. My barber.
That was like the men's choir in middle school, man. That was like our favorite song to sing because just, I don't know, you kind of be a little bit goofy.
Yeah, isn't choir great? Yeah, like
great.
It creates lasting memories like that. It's a really fantastic hobby for those who find music to be their outlet.
I could never do that though because what you do though because I can't sing high at all. I was a bass, which is probably not even a true bass, right? It's like a bass in La Crosse, Wisconsin, so we're really like baritone.
Okay.
Like you can't really sing low, but you also can't really sing high. So that's where they put you. That's where they put me.
So who are your main customers? You said like colleges, universities, or individual choirs?
Yeah, so our core customer base are high school and middle school choir programs in the United States. Like you said, we also work with university choirs, community choirs, church choirs. But yeah, our core customers are mostly public schools and private, high school and middle school. And our big kind of breakthrough moment was in 2020 with COVID when a lot of the economy kind of locked down. All of my friends who were performers living in New York, San Francisco, everything dried up. They had to move back home with their parents and kind of ride it out in a lot of cases. For us, we lost some of our community choir customers because a lot of those singers are older and it wasn't safe for them to be together. But our high school choir customers, middle school choir customers, university customers were still needing to get together. Those budgets were still there. Budgets in a lot of cases were actually increased to help accommodate the transition to digital. And so our product being fully digital was a huge lifeline for those customers to help kind of bridge that gap. So we just exploded in business in 2020. And then at the same time, to meet that demand, a lot of my singer friends ran out of work. And so I hired them on board to help fill that. So it kind of worked out really well in that way. And then, I was kind of a little bit concerned once COVID is done, are these customers going to kind of go away, go back to normal? That really hasn't been the case. Our product is sticky enough, high quality enough that once customers get a taste of it, they don't go back in most cases. So
that's awesome. So when you started, you were marketing to this by going into chat rooms and messaging people and You're now a much larger business. So how do you go about marketing these services to your potential customers?
Yeah, I kind of got started strategically from a more of a top-down approach where in the world of high school and middle school choirs, each state or county has kind of these larger, big all-state or all-county festivals. So I kind of went to the people who are in charge of those first and offered my services and got paid for those. And then the teachers and kids who were involved in that got a taste of the product and then thought, this would be great for my own program back at my school. So I kind of got started more just from a word of mouth sales approach there. And it's always been a challenge with this business for it not to grow too fast. There's always been the concern that I wouldn't be able to meet the demand. Of course, that was a big concern in 2020 when things were blowing up in a great way. So that was our biggest challenge that year that we were able to meet. But as far as traditional sales and marketing, it's really just been word of mouth, just organic. I run some ads here and there. I create some social media content here and there. It's something at some point soon, I think we're going to be ramping that up a bit more. But we really haven't had to do a whole lot, which is interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So do people come to you and you said where you can't keep up with demand. So are most of these bigger customers coming to you saying, these are the ones we want created, or they're just purchasing what you already have?
At this point now, since our catalog is big enough, it's mostly songs that we already have.
Okay.
As you can imagine, it's a very seasonal business, as a lot of businesses are. But at the beginning of the school year in August, September, we just get completely slammed, annihilated, right? And then it takes until about early December for us to kind of feel like we're fully caught up, if you will. And then we get maybe a couple weeks of breathing room where things go back to normal, whatever normal is. Sure. And then when the school year starts up again with the second semester in January, then we get slammed and annihilated again. And it's not until April when things really kind of calm down and quiet down. So yeah, it's a really interesting business in that way.
What's the vision for Capella? So you talked about the wedding venue that you guys will be having. You host weddings there, receptions and ceremonies. What is the vision for Capella long term? Yeah,
so a lot of people, my wife lovingly included, is asking, you've got this great thing going on with Choral Tracks, right? You're still growing. There's lots of challenges there. It takes up a lot of my time and energy. Why go into all these other things? Like, what's wrong with you?
I'm not gonna lie, that was gonna be my follow-up.
Oh, really?
A lot of cool. You got the entrepreneurial spirit to keep going, but I'm like, your Choral Track sounds pretty awesome. I know if it was me, I'd probably say, "Oh, sweet, I got one sweet product."
Right.
Go.
Yeah. I guess for me, it started in 2020, 2021 when I saw some really good investment opportunities. I'm into investing in stocks and crypto and things like that. So I did really well in 2020 after the market took a dive during COVID. So I got a really great return there. And then, of course, 2021, I've always been curious about getting into real estate and what that looks like. Obviously, a really great long-term investment. So with rates being historically low in 2021, that's how I kind of got into that business. But then I kind of quickly discovered that that business, in being so passive, and I like having my hands on and kind of building businesses. That's more what excites me and gets me going every day. And so when that church property Capella came on the market, and I immediately saw the vision for the Performing Arts Center. There's an organ in there. How cool is that? I get to own my own church organ. How cool is that? And I do have a big passion for the arts in La Crosse. Obviously, I grew up in the arts here and was given a lot of opportunities from very generous benefactors throughout the years who support organizations like that. And so it's my way of a little bit kind of giving back to the community and supporting other kids and those less fortunate in the community now. But yeah, I think part of my strategy and my thinking into it is that, of course, technologically, there's so many new advances in AI, right? And there's so many unknowns in the future around how is that going to displace different jobs in the workforce, right? And as great of a product and business as Choral Tracks is, I kind of see, and there's probably a time in the future where there's going to be a better, much more efficient product that's created via AI or something like that is going to render Choral Tracks obsolete potentially. And so I'm kind of pivoting a little bit. I obviously live in La Crosse now. I've moved back in 2017, and so I like the idea of being a part of the community and engaging in the community as well. And of course, a business like a weddings and events business, like a performing arts center, no matter how digital the world becomes, virtual the world becomes, there's always going to be a demand and need for those kinds of businesses for people to get together in person and celebrate parties and weddings and give musical concerts and things like that. So I guess that's part of my thinking as well is I'm thinking more kind of long-term macro that eventually Choral Tracks is going to run into some problems there with, and yeah.
Cool. Except for those good people that say, you know what? No, I'm going to pay real people instead of these bots.
Well, it's interesting. I think obviously I'm biased being fully immersed into the arts, but I think that going forward there's going to be a stronger, or I think that there should be a stronger importance for the arts in education. Obviously, that aspect of teaching creativity, thinking outside the box, right? Because I think in lots of different jobs, we are going to have computers and AI that are able to, robots that do kind of just, mundane tasks and things like that, or writing code for software, for websites, things like that. And so where human intelligence is going to be needed, it is more in, I think, thinking outside of the box and solving higher level problems, and education and immersion in the arts certainly helps with that. So there's that aspect as well.
Yeah, I kind of look at it like, everybody's like, well, quit the Amazon train, like support small business, local business. That's going to be like the new push. The new support local is going to be support real people instead of AI. But that's actually that's actually a good question that I want to ask now, because I heard a discussion on it, right? Because it's, where is that fine line, right? Because art is this thing that people create, and art, music, singing, any form of the arts is just this incredible, cool, unique, a lot of times emotional thing. So where is that, right? Because AI can now write songs and sometimes even record the songs. So where is that line of is that truly art though, if AI is doing it, as compared to this was written by a person, performed by a person? I mean, what's your opinion on that?
It's a really tough conundrum. I don't know if I have a full answer. I guess to speak as a musician, I think that there's always going to be value placed on human performance and human creation. But over time, as computers and AI get more and more sophisticated, I mean, it's already the case where, like you said, a computer AI program can write a song, can take Jay-Z's voice, create a song that is in Jay-Z's style, steal his voice, create some kind of a text, and you play the song. And if you don't know a lot about Jay-Z, then you wouldn't know the difference. It's crazy. You look in like Hollywood. There was that big strike recently, and part of the fight for writers and actors was the ability for movie producers to use famous actors' facial likenesses in films, right? Making sure that those actors are compensated for that, right? So it's across all of the arts, not just music. This is an interesting topic that people are wrestling with right now. And I don't know if I have a great answer, but I think I heard of a concert that happened, a rock concert somewhere in Texas, like in Houston or something, like a U2 concert or something, or no, I forget which group it was. It wasn't U2, but it was just 100% holographs on stage. It wasn't a real band.
Wow.
100% holographs, and they were so sophisticated that you're sitting in your stadium seat from a distance, you can't tell at all. The sound is all the same, visually it's all the same. Maybe when the camera zooms in and shows them on the big screen, it looks a little bit different. But just the act of going to a Taylor Swift concert or whatever can already today be fully mimicked and still give an audience member that exciting experience. So,
But don't you think the value, like in art, in music, is the brand and the identity of the person? Like you think of an artist that's some big name, like their art is sometimes not the greatest, but it's who they are. It's because they did it, they created. That's where the value is. You think of sports cards, for example. If you have a knockoff sports card, it's not worth as much than the legitimate authenticated sports card. Or a signed poster. If it's a computer-drawn signature that's a real person, there's more value in that. So, I don't know. I don't think that it's ever going to...
That's the difference, though, is now it's getting so good that you, sometimes can't tell that it wasn't that person, and AI is very good. So they come up with music, and it's, like, legitimately really good, and a lot of times, especially in the future, it's going to be the same quality. So it's going to sound like that person. They wrote it, so maybe it's even a better song than they could individually write, and it's cheap, quick, and easy. Think about, like, okay, now instead of Taylor Swift, I got to wait a year for an album. Taylor Swift can now put out 30
that
albums.
diminishes the value of
I
that.
agree.
If you're putting out more and more and more and the values diminish if you just go to see Taylor Swift at her one concert a year or three, whatever it is.
But that's the risk, I think, of the consumer likes quick and easy, right? Like Amazon came in and now everybody just use why? Because it's convenient, it's easy. Everybody uses Amazon now. I a lot of times use the analogy of like McDonald's. I know McDonald's is not the best burger. Why do they sell way more
McDonald's?
No, I don't. I legit don't eat at it very much, but I think it's a applicable thing. I can go there. I know it's not good, but people love it.
Yeah,
And they know it's not great, but they can buy it cheap, quick, and easy, a lot. But yet they're still doing more revenue, and people continue to go eat there, even though there's better restaurants, Apothik, and in other places and other burger joints. This burger at this other like mom and pop shop or local place, that's a great like piece of meat. Like that's really good burger.
Yeah.
But McDonald's is going to continually outsell them, even though it's not good. I think that's the fear is.
but I don't know. I think the arts is an outlier to that. Don't you think?
Well, I think with anything that technology is disrupting, it just means that for creators, if you're a singer, dancer, actor, etc., in any of the arts spaces, it just means you need to pivot and do things a little bit differently. You know, the model of being a rock band or a professional artist, and you know, creating recording albums, and you've got your producers, you've got all these different layers that prop up the business, right? With new technological tools, platforms like TikTok and Instagram, et cetera. Now, it's just much easier just to go kind of direct to your customers, direct to your fans, and create and monetize on that, right? So, you know, if you're an actor or a singer, I think it just means that you need to be more creative, thinking outside the box, and using all those new tools to monetize what you do.
Yeah.
And I think too, I always describe a lot of the problems in the world, I feel, come down to like demographics, right? Political problems, economic problems, problems in the arts that we're talking about, where the baby boomer generation is just such an economic force to be reckoned with, if you will. Mm-hmm. They still kind of hold all the power and keys to all these different institutions that increasingly over time, as that gets transferred down to kind of our generation and people younger than us, the things are going to change a lot. Like in the music space, I mean, there's still all of these, you know, huge global companies who own, like Sony, who own rights to the Beatles and all of these fantastic groups from the 60s and 70s, et cetera, right? And that intellectual content is very valuable. They're selling this intellectual property for billions of dollars between these companies. But who's actually kind of consuming a lot of that old music, like the Beatles, et cetera? You know, it's obviously like the baby boomer generation, maybe Gen X, maybe millennials. But then what does that look like in 20, 30 years? Are people going to still put that value on that intellectual property? Is it going to be consumed at the same rate? Probably not quite as much. So it's not only a kind of a technological disruption, but just a generational change as well.
And I read an article, one of the Viterbo articles on you, talked about the future is creating an experience. and people are looking for an experience. And you look at the Sphere in Las Vegas, that place looks incrable. You know what I mean?
Isn't that insane?
Insane, but that's a
Crazy. A lot
crazy
of money.
Is it really?
I think so.
really. But it's like a crazy experience to go do that. And I think you're creating an experience on a smaller scale at Capella by like a person like me wanting to go to a classical concert because you got a cool charcuterie board and martinis, and it's like nice, comfortable chairs, and it's more of a hangout experience than just going black tie and sitting at a formal. You know what I mean? I would never have an interest in doing that. But you've created a space that is interested somebody like me to go to that experience. So
yeah, I think La Crosse is just a really fantastic town. Obviously, we're biased. we all live here and from here in my case. And just economically, it's very robust here. There's tons going on in the arts here. Community theater, symphony, etc., just all over the place. And so like my thought in getting into putting on concerts and experiences has really been fun, giving people unique experiences, showing them what can be possible in the arts. We've really been leading into the jazz aspect a lot. People have really been eating that up, and then my thought in buying the Apothik business was through weddings and putting on concerts and parties and things like that. Now we can serve food in-house to all of our events and kind of realize that profit margin there, connect everything up together.
So what are some things coming up though, around Christmas time and the holidays? Do you have any cool events coming up?
Yeah, we have our most popular concert of the season is we call it a Holly Jazzy Christmas. It features the La Crosse Jazz Orchestra. So they put on a full kind of hour and a half program of all of your favorite holiday tunes. They hire a star singer she lives up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Debbie O'Keefe, her name is. So she comes in and sings all the great tunes with the big band behind her. So it's a 12-piece jazz big band. And we're pretty close to being sold out for that one. So really excited to put that on.
when is that?
That's December 8th and 9th, coming right up.
Almost sold out, so people may or may not have a chance.
Almost. Get in right away. Yeah.
Awesome. So what advice would you give to the younger entrepreneur that has a passion for something like music that's maybe not easily monetized or not normally monetized? What advice would you give to somebody who wants to turn their passion into a business?
Definitely for me, it's been just hard work, just crazy hours. I love working all the time. I work 80, 90, sometimes 100 hours a week. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I think that's especially true when you're young and you don't have a family and you don't have a whole lot of other things tying you down. Put in that time then when you're in college and in your 20s, and results will really come from that. It's hard to find that focus for whatever you're trying to build. When you're trying to create a product or you're trying to figure out what your market is and what the demand is going to be, you're going to run into a lot of kind of failures along the way, and you're going to have to pivot a lot along the way before you kind of find that focus where you can go all in and be super efficient. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, for being a business owner and an entrepreneur, it's it takes a high tolerance of stress and lots of financial failures along the way. And then I would say too, it's a lot different coming up with a business idea as an entrepreneur and then actually building a business. And that's where your skill set in dealing with people is so incredibly important, because everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. You have to figure that out and set people up for success in their own ways and manage people effectively. I think you have to have a really diplomatic personality where you can deal with lots of people's challenges. I think that's the biggest challenge in building a business is just managing people and making sure that they're set up for success professionally and in their own personal life.
So how have you had to evolve as a leader from being the technician in the business, the singer, doing all of the work, recording the tracks, to then becoming a leader of now a team of 14, 15 people. Your job has changed drastically.
Yep. The majority of my time is still sitting down in front of a microphone and recording, which is, of course, what I love doing the most. So that brings me the most joy. I've been able to hire some managers. So for my primary business, Choral Tracks, my colleague Nate is the one who kind of manages people most closely. If there's an issue that comes up technologically or something, or someone's sick, he's the one who handles all of that. So thank you, and he's really fantastic with all of that. So I'm lucky enough to be at that point where I can have Nate take care of most of that. But yeah, like with Apothik right now, it's a brand new business, and I need to kind of assert myself as the person in charge and managing people. And yeah, just in the past few weeks, we've had some some challenges with new people coming in and just getting to know them and training. And obviously we it's a great brand, and we kept on most of the staff through the change of ownership. And so people get kind of stuck in their ways. And so trying to change some things has been difficult. And yeah, I would say you're going to experience some really bad days and a lot of failures. But I try to be when I hire someone, I see that person as kind of a part of my family, if you will. I feel the responsibility to set them up for success. I'm the one committing to them. Yes, it's true the other way around. They're committing to me as well. But I want to be that more kind of compassionate leader. People have lives. People have families. People get sick. Stuff happens, right? So I try to step back. I think one challenge that I realized at a certain point several years ago is that most people aren't like me. Like I'm crazy. Like I'm like the ultimate industrious bee, if you will. Just crazy efficient. I can just sit down for 10 hours, just lock in, not get fatigued, go home, deal with everything, come back the next day and just do it again and not faze me, But most people aren't like that. So for me, like letting go and not having that same expectation for my employees was and still is a challenge for me.
I don't know where I heard it, but I heard somebody say like the 10-80-10 rule, like the 10%, you should do the 10% of the work to lead that person, to set them up for success. They're doing 80% of the work. And then the final 10 is you approving and looking at and finalizing the work that they did. So they might not be doing, it's not right to have 100% expectation that they're going to be doing 100% of the job, working as hard as you are working. Like if they can do 80 of it, and that can take the 80% of your time off of your plate to just do the 20 to pour into them. I mean, that's how businesses grow. So
yeah, and for me, again, I just the aspect of just growing a business is super appealing to me. Like I'm in a place with Choral Tracks where, especially in the off season, like April through July, I could go off and sit on a beach somewhere if I wanted to and just completely check out, and the business would be completely fine. Like I've kind of gotten to that place. Like I've had some offers to sell the Choral Tracks business for enough money where I could just retire and just hang it up and not do anything the rest of my life. But for me, the act of building businesses, interacting with people, playing the game, if you will, not to trivialize the process of building a business, because for some people, their business is their livelihood. It's paying the mortgage, it's supporting the family. I've gotten to a place where that's not the case with some of my newer businesses. And so for me, it's just building something great, setting up people for success, contributing something to the community. I'm not the kind of guy, you're not going to find me out on the golf course at all. Like I like golfing. I have nothing against it.
Amen.
I have nothing against it, but you're not going to find me out on the golf course anywhere. A lot of people.
We'll get you on the golf course.
Well, in your business, when you're on the golf course, you're probably doing business a lot. There's a big aspect to that.
No.
So you're not going to find me out on the river in the summer. And my parents have a really lovely spot up in Trempealeau, not too far away, or on the river. But you're not going to find me out on the river. No.
You'll find me in both of those.
You just described Austin's summer to a T.
Sorry, Austin. Nothing against that. Nothing against that. But yeah, for me, I've just always discovered we're all trying to find our work-life balances, right? And for every entrepreneur, every business owner, that's completely different. But for me, it's of course my family. I have 2 beautiful kids, 2 sons, 6 years old, 3 years old. At home, of course, wife Robin at home, and so I focus time and attention to them when I come home at the end of the day. But once I put them to bed, I sit on the couch, get out my laptop, put on YouTube podcasts for 4 or 5 hours, and go to bed at midnight or 1 a.m. It's just constant around the clock. I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's awesome, man. It was awesome having you here. This was a lot of fun and a lot of helpful insights for our listeners. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sincerely hope that you learned something today. And as always, we appreciate your support and hope that you can all find a way this week to pay it forward.